everyone, it's Allison here, also known as Lasan Faye, and today I'm here with a brand new Zen Doodle with me video for the second full week in the month of July. And as a reminder, I do these videos based upon the list that I get from the Zen Art Challenge hosted by Heather with Mindful Creativity, and I'll include a link to the Facebook group down in the description below. And recently there's a mailing list starting up, so if you don't have a Facebook, you could sign up for the mailing list instead and still receive all the information. And I'll also include that link down below. Also, as a reminder, any of the tangles that I do, I include links to all the sources I can find down in the description. And with that being said, let's go ahead and dive on into the tangles for this week. The first tangle I have for you all today is called Turned Over by Texas Doxy Mama. And this is one of those, again, that you could tile, but I'm only going to show one iteration of it. So the way this tangle works is you start by creating an eye shape. And to do that, you create a parenthesis going one way and a matching parenthesis going the other way, such that the two ends of the parentheses meet up. Then off of the tips of the eye, we're just going to draw a circular shape that comes off the end there on both sides. And then from where the circle shapes meet the eyes, we're going to draw lines that come out and form a triangle. And on the end of those triangle pieces, we're also going to add some circles. And finally, to add a little bit of character, we're just going to mimic the parenthesis line within each of the triangles. And that is turned over. Again, you can choose to layer these together. There's some examples about how to do that in the image off on the right, or you could also go to the link that's included down below. I think this is a really cute tangle, and I hope you all enjoyed it too. But let's go ahead and move on to the next tangle. The second tangle I have for you all today is called Urban Spinner, and it's by Elaine Benfato. And the way you want to get started with this one is, if you choose to, you can draw a grid and pencil. Since I already have a grid laid out for me, I don't really need to do that. But then on alternating intersections of your grid lines, what you want to do is create a double circle around that intersection. Between all of these, you want to draw vertical lines that connect them, as well as horizontal lines. Then finally, between the dots that are in in adjacent rows, there we go, that's the phrasing I was looking for, you want to just connect them via a diagonal line. So that's the base groundwork that you need. You can also choose to color these spaces in if you like. So for example, that's what I'm going to do. So that's an example of a way you could choose to color in Urban Spinner. There's also plenty of options that you can see, ways you could shade or color in this pattern off on the right. But yeah, I think this is a very interesting tangle. It's one of those that can be magnified or minimized and still look really cool. And I hope you all enjoyed this one. But I'm going to leave it here and move on to the next tangle. The third tangle I have for you all today is called Triaxle, and it's by Lizzie Main. Again, this is one that you can tile, but I'm going to only show one iteration of it and allow you to experiment as you wish. So the way you're going to get started with this one is you're going to start by drawing a thin diamond. And then from this diamond, what you're going to do is draw lines that are the same length coming from each of the corners that are on the right hand side. And then finally you're going to connect those lines to each other. It kind of creates this three-dimensional cube shape. And then on this cube, on each face, you're going to draw lines that go and divide the face. And you want to rotate which way those lines are going. So that way one face's lines are always going into another face's lines. Like that. And again, as I mentioned, you can do a lot of these together, as demonstrated in the image on the right. But yeah, I think this is a lot of fun. There's a lot of shading opportunities available here, and I hope you take the time to experiment with it. But I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next tangle. The fourth tangle I have for you all today is called Tulips. And I can't read the creator on this one, so I'm sorry. If someone happens to know the name of the creator, if you could please let me know, I'd really appreciate it. The way that you go about doing this one is you're going to create some rows of scalloped edges. With those in place, at each place where the scallop comes in, we're just going to add a little arrow point that comes up out of it. All right, and then underneath each of those points, about not quite halfway through the scallops, we're just going to do a little U shape. And then finally, from the arrow tips that we drew earlier, we're just going to draw a line that goes up and connects them to those U shapes. That is Tulips. I think this is a really good space filling pattern. I love the fact that you can see the tulip shape from the second you start drawing in the U's. So I think that's really, really neat. And yeah, there's probably also a lot of ways that this pattern could be shaded or filled in, and I highly encourage all of you to experiment with that. But I'm going to go ahead and leave this one here. The fifth tangle I have for you all today is called Li-Fi, and it is by Jose Miusin. And the way you get started with this one is you're going to want to draw yourself a dot grid. Since the paper I'm working with already has a dot grid on it, I'm skipping this step. But you should be aware that that is going to be where you want to start. And then once you have your dot grid in place, you're going to start with your bottom left dot and kind of do a little stem that comes out and does a tiny curl around at one dot in and up, I guess. And you want to repeat this going across, as well as repeat this going upward. And then after you have all of your diagonal upwards in place, you then want to create one that goes across in a horizontal direction. However, you're going to add a slight curve to it so that it curves up, curves down, and then spirals inward. Then at the end of the first spiral ends that we created, so the ones that go up, we're just going to add some little flower leaves. Alright, with those in place, then anywhere where you have an acute angle where the initial lines that we drew in are, I'm just going to create a little divot, and this will be shaded in. I'm just going to shade it in with a different nibbed pen. That is it for that effect. Anyways, I think this is a really gorgeous tangle, and I hope you all do too. And I highly encourage you all to play around with it and try fitting it into different shapes or different spaces, because this is a really pretty pattern to fill in any areas that you're not sure what you want to do with. And yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and fill in this last space and then leave this tangle here and move on to the next one. The sixth tangle I have for you all today is called Feather, and it's a Jane Monk Studio design. And so the way you get started with this one is we're going to start by drawing a stem that comes out and just does a small little loop at the top. Alright, then with that in place, starting from the bottom and working our way up, we're going to do a little teardrop shape. And rather than starting each teardrop individually from the stem, we're going to instead do the next one off of the previous one. And similarly, we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Alright, with all of those in place, what you're going to do is you're going to draw almost a scallop, except it's the middle part of the scallop where it divots in. So almost like how you would do a bird off in the distance, around the tip of each of these shapes that you just put in. And then you can choose to embellish this however you wish. So that is it for feather. Again, another really pretty design. It's one of those that I think can stand on its own. You could pair several of them together or do whatever you want. So yeah, feel free to experiment. But I'm going to go ahead, leave this one here, and move on to the next tangle. This next tangle for you all, I don't know the name of it, but I believe it is by Maria Jose Bertansko. And the way you want to get started with this one is you're going to make a bunch of spiral shapes in a line. And for these spirals, I suggest starting outside and working your way in. Once you have added as many as you would like, between each of the spirals, what you're going to do is you're going to make this filled in fan shape by going towards the divot, mimic it going out, loop over, and come back in. With those in place, we're pretty much just going to now form an outside edge that encapsulates all of the area that we've drawn in. And you could choose to double this up. You could make it straight lines rather than a scallop. But yeah, I think this is a very nice little border piece that you could use. And yeah, it's a whole lot of fun to do. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this one here. And that's a wrap for this week's Tangles. I want to thank you all so much for tuning in to this Zen Doodle with me video. And if you like this video, please go ahead, give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more of these videos, go ahead and click that subscribe button down below. I want to thank you all so much for tuning in, and I will see you all next week. And in the meantime, take care and have a wonderful, wonderful week. Bye.